Miami Dolphins are coming off a great win against the Rams on Monday Night Football, but they may have given us the worst thing someone in our position needs:
hope.
But in all seriousness, I'm happy to see the Dolphins finally get back on a winning path and giving us the hope to potentially make a crazy run. Now, it is unlikely, but it is a possibility. But unfortunately, they've dug themselves in this hole and they can barely afford another loss on the season. But I'm going to hop right into the Miami Dolphins versus the Las Vegas Raiders, starting with the Miami Dolphins offense versus the Las Vegas Raiders defense. Dolphins offense is 30th in points per game. Raiders defense is 30th in points allowed. So obviously evenly matched in terms of the numbers, but I think the Dolphins offense is much better than that. In terms of the rushing game, Dolphins rushing is 9th in rushing yards per game. Raiders are 22nd in rushing yards allowed. So right there is where the Dolphins need to focus their energy. Try and run them to the ground. If they can't stop your run, just keep running. Hopefully we have Alec Ingold back to help establish this running game, as he was missed dearly against the Rams, where we struggled to run the football. Obviously, some injuries across the offensive line have impacted our ability to run the football. Austin Jackson, first and foremost, as well as Robert Jones went down with an injury. But guard Isaiah Wynn was activated off of the injured reserve list, so I don't anticipate him to be a starter if Robert Jones is healthy, because he's still getting back to football. But if Robert Jones is out, then obviously Isaiah Wynn is an easy plug and play in his place. So once again, I think the Dolphins need to try to establish this running game. If the Raiders want to do what every other team does against us and park those two safeties back, run the ball and force them to drop a safety into the box. Now, in terms of the Dolphins passing game versus the Raiders passing defense, the Dolphins are 25th in passing yards per game. Raiders are 11th in passing yards allowed. So obviously the Raiders have a much better passing defense than they do rushing defense. So once again, if you can just run the ball all game, then do it. Obviously the Dolphins passing offense has leveled up, in my opinion. They can take the shots over the top of the defense. Obviously that hasn't happened recently due to the defenses that we've been seeing, but what they've evolved in my opinion, is that short and intermediate passing game. If they want to double Waddle and they want to double Tyreek, the Dolphins now have players that can get the ball and make plays. We saw it with Jonnu Smith. We see it weekly with Achane. Obviously, that's why Odell was brought in. He still hasn't made that big impact, but he's getting there, in my opinion. And he's just that third receiver that you need, which is clutch, as well as Mike Washington, who stepped up. So despite the passing offense being down from last year, I genuinely think they're improved because they can now win in multiple ways. They can take the shot, dink and dunk. They have the speed threats, but they also have a Jonnu Smith that can run some people over. So I think the Dolphins passing offense has leveled up. We saw Tua's ability to make plays outside of structure, which is something huge. So just once again, I think this Dolphins offense is good. Obviously, there's some self-inflicted wounds, but if they can establish this running game and do what they do on offense. So if they want to double everybody, go to the open man. We saw that perfectly against the Bills. It wasn't the cleanest game against the Rams, but they have some good players. They get paid as well. Their defensive line feasted. I obviously need to see some better production from the offensive line, and I'm hoping with the return of Alec Ingold, we can establish that running game. So obviously, keys, run it until they stop you, and do what you do in terms of the passing game. If they want to play too high, find the open man. If they want to drop a safety down, then you can take your shots to Tyreek and Waddle. Overall, I think the Dolphins have a clear advantage on the offensive side of the ball. The Raiders lack a lot of talent on the defensive side, but a player to watch, obviously we all know him, Max Crosby, one of the best players in all of football. That dude is a stud. Despite being on a poor team, he is still a dog. He's still going to play with a high motor, and he's one of the best players in the league. And he's going to be going up against a backup in Kendall Lamb on the right side, so just something to look out for. Hopefully we can continue our quick passing offense. Tua had to hold the ball a lot longer than he normally did against the Rams. They did a good job of taking away a lot of things, so that could be dangerous if the Raiders are able to copy that game plan. But I expect the Dolphins to be able to handle the Raiders defense with ease, considering the playmakers we have. In terms of the Miami Dolphins defense versus the Raiders offense, first and foremost, the Raiders made a offensive coordinator change, so that's something to look out for. Obviously, you don't know exactly what they're going to do with the new OC, but in the middle of the season, there's only so many changes you can make on the offensive side of the ball. It's not like it's going to be a complete scheme overhaul, but I'm sure there's going to be some differences in the approach this Raiders offense takes. But currently, they sit at 25th in points per game. Dolphins defense is 17th in points allowed. In terms of rushing attack, the Raiders are dead last, 32nd 32nd in rushing yards per game. Dolphins are 12th in rushing yards allowed. So obviously that's a good advantage for the Dolphins. Our run defense has been good all year, in my opinion, outside of a few long runs that were, in my opinion, caused by David Long, who was just released. So I think the run defense has been cleaned up tremendously. And considering they're 32nd in the league, maybe the new OC looks to run the ball more, but ultimately I think this is an advantage for the Dolphins. They shouldn't really have to worry too much about having to allocate more resources into stopping the run game, which is obviously a benefit because then you can allocate more resources to the passing game, keep them in 2nd and 3rd and longs, and show your exotic defenses with your simulated blitzes and get after that quarterback. Raiders are 18th in passing yards per game. The Dolphins are 8th in passing yards allowed. So once again, the Dolphins have the better numbers in terms of that area, and the Raiders are just a mess offensively. They trade Devontae Adams. They are constantly having quarterback changes from Gardner Minshew to Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell gets hurt, and then it's Gardner Minshew, and then Desmond Ridder, and now Gardner Minshew was once again named starter. When you're switching quarterbacks like that, it's not a good sign for the offensive side of the ball. They lack talent. They just lack everything, in my opinion. So the defensive keys, obviously with the new offensive coordinator, this is a Jimmy's and Joe's, not an X's and O's thing. The Dolphins are just way more talented, and they're playing way harder. I feel like they have much more to prove and build off what they did against the Rams. They held a phenomenal Rams offense to 5 field goals, no touchdowns. Continue to do that. If they get into field goal range, just hold them to 3. That's how you win football games. I'm hoping we can finally get a complete game from this Dolphins team. Obviously, against the Cardinals and the Bills, the offense was stepping up, but the defense was letting us down. And then against the Rams, it was mainly the defense stepping up. The offense let us down in moments. So hopefully we can get a complete complimentary football game. Players to watch for this Raiders offense, honestly, it's just Brock Bowers. He's obviously a stud. Michael Mayer might be back, their other tight end, but their other receivers, Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, no one to really worry about. The quarterbacks, Gardner Minshew, they lack a lot of talent on this offensive side of the ball. So look for the Dolphins to feast. I'm hoping, like I said, they get a complete football game, offense, defense, special teams, and can really finally kind of put a whooping on the team that we haven't yet seen this season. I'm 29-15 lifetime predicting videos on this YouTube channel, 6-3 this year. I'm picking Dolphins games, so double the wins than losses. So my prediction for the Dolphins versus the Las Vegas Raiders is that the Dolphins beat them 34-17 and make it a 2-game winning streak. Comment your prediction down below. I appreciate you guys for watching. Check out the Dolphins Dive for the best Dolphins merch out there. Like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time, fins up.